All right. So, yeah, now that we've averted that intense safety crisis, thankfully my kids seem to be all right. They've recovered surprisingly quickly. So CPS yet again will be staved off for another several hours from having to come back here. Uh, but anyway, so just to sort of talk through that stuff, pulley systems are really great. What the idea is with any pulley system is that you got the pulleys set up in such a way that when you're pulling, you're actually pulling a longer distance than you're lifting. So you'll see sometimes in movies people like throw a pulley into a system and then they magically can like lift things that are heavy. If you just have a rope running up through a pulley and then back down, that does nothing. It just changes the direction of pull, so you can like lean your weight into lifting something up, which I mean is totally useful. But it's just like top rope belaying where it doesn't actually help. What the difference is here is that basically what you have is you've got a rope running up through a pulley, back down to a second pulley that will be helping to lift up, which is doubling the weight, and then going up and back down to a catching system right here. What that ascender is doing is that it makes it so you can actually adjust this, and you'd be using this in like a hulling setup. So basically what that means is that if I start pulling for every 3 feet that I pull down, so 3 feet right here, for every 3 feet that I pull down, I'm only lifting something about a foot off the ground. So what that means is that in an ideal system, this would be a 3-to-1 pulley. However, this system loses efficiency due to, like my daughter Jenny said, through the haze of pain of a broken leg from the tragic train accident that she was referencing, which is completely ad-libbed and cute, I thought. But anyway, with that concept, by using pulleys, you're minimizing the loss of efficiency by minimizing that coefficient of friction. If you do a different setup, something like this, and you can keep adding in more carabiners in this style of system, you can again create a 3-to-1 ratio for amount of distance pulled to lift an object. But due to the fact that you lose a lot of that efficiency by having the rope just running through carabiners up here, like I said, it's not really 3-to-1. And if you add more, like if I had another pulley here and another pulley up at the top, that are both attached right here, or attached right. So one pulley that's attached again to this, and another pulley that would be going through this one at the top. Then I could increase the ratio of distance to lift. But again, it's just like one of those things where you lose something to friction each time you do it, and it becomes like a moot point. So if people are like, oh yeah, I set up like a 9-to-1 pulley, then it's like that works great in like a theoretical universe, but unless you have like a very, very specific setup, that it's usually not like an efficient method. The reason why people use ascenders for this as opposed to just like tying a knot or something is so you can continue hulling. So let's say that I was out on a wall, like if we watch Dawn Wall later this semester, you pull up the slack, and I keep pulling and keep pulling. Oftentimes people have like a catch device, like a gree or protraction or something like that, up at the top, or traction, or however they say it. But you pull up, and then at some point, you just keep holding the rope static. You grab onto your ascender, and then you slide that down. So you can continue pulling up. So basically, I would pull it all the way until it's up top, and then I slide my ascender farther down the rope so as to continue taking in slack. So, the next thing that I was going to talk about is we had people talking about setting, and I wanted to just sort of briefly talk about the concept of setting. The first thing, what is happening up there? Hey guys, are you okay?
Mom is being really mean.
Are you tough? Are you good?
want to play the pool.
Well, you don't have to.
Only
Hey, well, that's wonderful. Here, I'm teaching a class, so I love you. So basically, hey Jenny, can you show me climbing just the yellow ones right here?
Okay.
What the concept is, only the yellows, remember? What the concept of setting is that when you're climbing, you want to be forcing motion. And so the idea is that when people are doing it, they have to do stuff a specific way. And by doing things that specific way, it basically creates a system where you can have, a good grade system. You got it. You can have like a good grading system. Yeah, go for it. You can have a good grading system, and what that grading system is based off of is the idea that everyone is doing the same moves. What that means is that when people are climbing, what you sort of want to think of this as is you want to think of it as sort of a combination of an athletic endeavor and also just like a puzzle that you're solving. In climbing, there really aren't that many techniques. We've gone over a bunch of them in class, or in the climbing class. But what the idea is that when you're climbing, there's backstepping, there's stemming, there's toe hooks and heel hooks, there's crimping. Honey, I can't talk right now. Are you okay?
Mama made me fall off the slide.
Are you all right? Yes or no? Here, I love you.
But now I'm never ever gonna play this way.
That sounds like a good plan. Sorry, there's not that many techniques. There's like I said, smearing, toe hooks, momentum shifts, high steps, edging, back steps, things like that. But once you sort of have the general, to use a common phrase in a lot of sports, once you have this sort of general skill set, it's like tools in a toolbox, and it's just figuring out when you need to use them. The thing that's nice about indoor climbing is that there's another component to that, which is the sort of psychology of it. So basically, when you're getting set to climb something, you want to think, all right, not only is there a specific way that this is going to be done, there's a specific way that these setters are trying to make me do things that's going to be something that's hopefully not going to be height dependent, depending on the gym that you're climbing at. Hopefully it's going to be have a good flow, so it's not going to be super awkward unless you're getting into like really harder grades. And so what that means when you're looking at a climb, you can try and figure it out from the ground and see what is the best way that they intended for it to go. The other thing that I would say too is one of my favorite things when I climb, at least indoors, and the thing that I would always try and do when I was back in the long ago when I was like sponsored and used to compete and stuff, was I would try and break the sequence. So basically, if people would try and have you do it one way, that is one specific difficulty, try and identify ways. So first thing, you want to figure out how they want you to do it. And then once they got that, what? Hey, no running people over, okay?
Tum-tum.
Here, but I'm working right now. I can't. I love you guys. Go play. But what the idea is, again, is that you can break the sequence. You want to figure out what they're trying to make you do, and then figure out if there's any shortcuts that you can make to get from one move to the next, or to skip a move altogether, so as to make the route easier for yourself. And so, again, there's what's called beta, which is like the recommended way that people will tell you to do a route. And then what the idea is that by making your own beta, by coming up with different technique for doing things, you can really, like I said, you can really accomplish like a lot in terms of finding harder routes or harder graded routes that you wouldn't have been able to do, that you figured out like new beta to be able to get done. And again, just play to your strengths. I used to be pretty good at dynamic climbing, where I'd be good at sort of jumping through moves. Other people are super flexible. Other people are shorter in stature, so they can get their feet way closer to their hands than somebody who's taller can. Some people have long reach, and so on and so forth. But again, like I said, if you think of it as a puzzle and not just a purely athletic endeavor, it really will help because the setters are really trying to force motion. They're trying to force you to do it only one way. And being able to both identify that way and then figure out different ways while looking at their path where it's like, okay, this is how this is intended, but I bet that I can make that move, and that move easier. That's like the best way to sort of approach indoor problems. For outdoor problems, it's like basically the opposite. What the concept is with an outdoor route, you have a grade. It was not, or I'm not going to get into, basically you have a grade, but since the route was not designed by a specific person, unless it was set up with somebody who like went up and drilled pockets and chipped holes and glued things on, which some people do, and some routes are. But assuming that it was just sort of created by erosion or whatever, the route is not like there was a person who was thinking behind it. However, there was a person behind it who was grading it, right? In those grades, people like do a route, the person thinks that it's a grade, people sort of come to consensus, especially if it's a popular route over a long amount of time. And what that does is it gives you an idea, especially if you're familiar with the area, you've climbed other things there, of what holds are going to be like once you get to sort of a difficult sequence. So in other words, if you're climbing, a 5.9 or you're looking at a 5.9 and you see a hold up ahead and there's a big gap after that hold, you can assume that you're going to be using one of the techniques that backstepping, high steps, like big momentum shift or something like that, and going to like a fairly good hold. And again, just this is like a random example, but you can base your assumption on the quality of holds that you have not gotten to yet on the difficulty or the perceived difficulty of the route that you're on. So again, if you're climbing something that's at like the very edge of your ability and you get up there and you're trying something and flailing around, that might just be that it's a little hard for the grade and it's too hard for you. If you're trying something that's not at the edge of your ability and you get up there and you're just failing miserably at that one move, it means that you're either not finding the right sequence and you need to be trying different things, or you're missing a hold and you need to be looking around or you're not quite in the right spot. But one thing that you see a lot of, especially novice climbers do, is they'll get up to a spot, and especially if they're like nervous and they're leading, they'll just try the exact same sequence that doesn't work like 6 times in a row, and they get super tired and then just give up. And again, it's like one of those things where if you get somewhere and you try something and it just feels impossible, it might be impossible and you're just doing it wrong and you should try a different technique. But anyway, that's just a brief concept on setting and the concept of climbing and using the information given by the grade to your advantage. Cool. And then